Hey guys, this is Shelby from For Your Plate Only. I don't think I need to tell you guys how good of a combination blue corn, green chili, and cheese is, but if you need some convincing, you should definitely try out this recipe. Alright, other than ingredients, you're going to need a bench scraper, a knife, a rubber spatula, a rolling pin, and a pastry brush. So for our ingredients, we actually used 1 cup of cheddar jack cheese. Our blue cornmeal we got locally, but if you look online, I'm sure you can find blue cornmeal. We used unsalted butter, but if you have salted butter, you can use it, just omit the salt. And our green chili we got from New Mexico. If you don't have buttermilk, you can make some using a cup of milk and a tablespoon of white vinegar. You're just going to set that aside and let it sit until we're ready to use it. Now all I'm doing is cleaning and de-seeding our green chili. We actually fire roasted these over an open flame and then threw them in a Ziploc bag. Let them sit for about 10 to 15 minutes and the skin should peel off pretty easy. We didn't want it to be super spicy, so we took out some of the seeds, but it's really up to you. Now all I'm going to do is rough chop the chili and add them to the creamed corn. So now we're going to add all of the dries together and you're going to cut in your cold butter to your flour mix. The reason why you want cold butter is because it creates little pockets of steam once it's in the oven, and those are super important because they create a nice flaky texture once it comes out. And you want to make sure you have small pea-sized chunks of butter in your flour by the time you're done. Now we can move on to adding your cheese into your flour mix. Go ahead and give that a stir. Then you're going to go ahead and add your corn and your hatch green chili, and you're going to mix that up with your spatula just until it's incorporated. So using the buttermilk that you made earlier, you're going to go ahead and gradually add that into your flour mixture, and you're going to mix that up with your spatula. The reason why you're adding in your buttermilk gradually is because depending on your elevation, you might not use the full cup or you might actually need more. It's a pretty good thing to know, especially if you're baking at a higher altitude, because liquids actually evaporate faster. So if you have problems with your breads drying out or your cakes drying out, you should definitely look into adding a little bit more liquid to compensate for that. So what you want to be looking for in this dough is just to make sure that you don't have any dry spots, and you're going to continue adding your buttermilk until everything is incorporated, and you want your dough to be slightly sticky. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn my dough out onto a well-floured surface, and you really want to make sure that your table is nicely floured because this dough is pretty sticky. I don't like to knead the dough. I would rather have you fold it because you're creating layers and you don't want to add any more gluten than there already is. Alright, now that we've been playing with our dough for a while, we need to wrap it up in plastic and let it sit in the fridge for about 30 minutes. So while your dough is chilling, go ahead and make an egg wash, set it aside, and preheat your oven to 385 degrees Fahrenheit. After 30 minutes, take your dough out and go ahead and flour your surface again. You're going to want to roll your dough out into a longer rectangle. Size doesn't really matter here, it needs to be about ½ inch thick. Once you've got it into a rectangle, you're going to go ahead and cut that into 4 smaller rectangles or 4 equal sections widthwise, and obviously I didn't get it the first time. I'm not using a ruler or a measuring tool at all. I'm just going based off of what I think is equal. I'm using a bench scraper to cut through my dough, but if you don't have a bench scraper, that's totally fine. You can use your knife. Go ahead and use it in a rocking motion instead of dragging it, otherwise your dough will get stuck to your knife and it'll pull. Now cut in half lengthwise and then cut in half again diagonally, and then you're going to start placing your scones onto a sheet pan. It doesn't have to be greased, it shouldn't get stuck. If you want to, you can use a parchment paper, but I wouldn't advise greasing the sheet, it's really not necessary. Alright, so we have one more step before we put these scones in the oven, and that's egg wash. You're going to use your pastry brush to go ahead and brush the egg wash on top of each scone. The egg wash is going to give the scones a really nice golden brown finish, as opposed to it looking very dull and dry. We ended up baking our scones for about 19 minutes, but depending on your oven, it could range anywhere from 14 minutes to about 19 minutes. So when it's done, you're going to go ahead and just press your finger on top, and if it springs back, it should be ready. We also took these one step further and put them under the broiler for a few minutes. If you want extra cheese, you can throw the shredded cheese right on top and put them under the broiler for a couple minutes, just until they're melted. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, comment, like. Let us know if you make these and tag us on Facebook or on Instagram. Thank you guys.